Anyway, well, let's jump in. Let me go ahead and share the screen, and hopefully a few others might join us. I'm so glad you're here and appreciate just you taking the time. I'm going to start and just want to share some reminders about ICCTE. I'm so appreciative to Randy and the board. It's ICCTE is a remarkable organization that connects us and empowers us and pushes us to be the best we can be and as Christian educators. And as shared on the organization's website, ICCT is about each of us. It's about individuals and relationships. And many of us work in small programs and are often seeking fellowship, collaboration, mentoring, and professional growth with colleagues who do similar work. And so relationships built through ICCTE, as I know Kathy, Heather, Randy, you can attest to, um, our time together in conferences, webinars, service, our scholarship really is a way we can support each other. So thank you for supporting me today and for giving me this opportunity. I do hope our time together provides a little bit of fuel and challenge to you. Some of you have heard me speak before. I always try to put a new twist on things and throw out some new challenges for whatever season you are in. Whether you're busy at your desk eating lunch or on sabbatical, as several of you are, you might be looking at papers or exams or an article you need to finish writing. And I hope our time together gives you pause and fills your cup, even if just a little bit. To be fully transparent, today's webinar is not rocket science. I don't have a magic pill to share or a quick fix for your challenging professional days. But what I plan to share is research-based and significant for our self-care and our soul care. So let me begin by offering a prayer. Please bow your heads with me. O Christ, our rest, we pause amidst the labors of this day to remember the best reason for our laboring. We labor, O Lord, as stewards of your creation and as stewards of the gifts you have apportioned to each of us for the good of all. Bless then the works of our hands and minds and hearts, O God, that they might bear fruit for your greater purposes. May our work this day be rendered first as service to you, that the benefits of it might be eternal. Receive this offering, O Lord. Amen. Well, have you ever carried a coffee cup? This is one of mine. It's got the alphabet on it. Into your office hallway, into your classroom, or as you walked around campus. And can you picture a time when a student or colleague hurried by you while you were holding that full cup of coffee or maybe tea, and they bumped into you, causing you to spill coffee or tea everywhere? Well, we've all been there at one time or another, and I'm sure many of us have vowed to never fill our cup up to the brim ever again, or we commit to taking a different campus route, or we may vow to get a new cup with a fancy tight lid. And I share this story not to focus on coffee cups, but to urge us to consider the imagery of what's in each of our cups. What is filling your cup up? And what is spilling from your cup? One of my favorite educational writers and teachers, Parker Palmer, as I'm sure you guys can relate and I'm sure appreciate him as well, he notes that life's paradoxes are full of joy and complexity. And of course, you and I know that teaching is full of joy and complexity. In his book, Let Your Life Speak, Palmer encourages us to not skip on the inner work or heart part of our work, because if we do, our outer work will suffer. I share this reminder at every talk I give because it is so powerful. And let's not skimp on the inner work or our outer work will suffer. It's no surprise to any of you that it seems to feel harder and harder to find time and space in the middle of our teaching, research, writing, and committee work to pause and do Parker's suggested inner work. Why? Well, I know you are regularly asked to recruit students to your programs. I know you are asked and most often required to participate in sometimes challenging committee work. And you must also learn and understand AI while you meet with, teach, grade, and advise students. There are also a multitude of outside factors that affect our inner work as well, from political to global issues, family needs, and finances. And these things and so much more can get in the way of our mental health, our self care, our soul care. I'm guessing that most of you chose to teach because you felt hopeful about the future or felt hope filled in your ability to connect with students and develop students, or even that you found hope in researching and sharing about your subject matter. And ironically, as I thought about why I chose to teach, prepping for today, I came across my first philosophy of education paper written in 1988. I know I'm aging myself. When I was an undergraduate English and education major at Westmont College. Reading through my paper was nostalgic, and I noticed that I used the word hope throughout the essay. I was hoping to make a difference in students' lives, hoping to involve students to become active thinkers and learners, and hoping to bring enthusiasm and a love for my subject matter to my students. I began my career hopeful. So, keeping this in mind, might you take a minute for yourself to look in the rearview mirror and consider the role of hope in your professional life? So, what specific instances of hope did you see when you entered the profession? Whether it was recently, 10 years ago, 30 plus years ago, what brought you hope as you began your teaching career? And I'd like you to take a minute for yourself, and then I'll ask you, some of you have your cameras off, so I'll ask you to turn them on after I give you a minute or two and jump in and briefly share why you went into teaching. So take a minute or two and I'll call you back. So I'd love to hear. You just took a moment to think about why you went into teaching. Did teaching or thinking about the profession bring you hope? Think back. I'd love to hear from each of you. Just jump on in. There's only a few of us.
Okay, I wrote that I was motivated by the energy, the creativity, and the cuteness of little people.
Oh.
And I early in my teaching career, my dad died, and I had to go back to work after that. And I walked into the school, and there was kids everywhere, and I thought, coming back to work after that, there's no place else I would rather be than in this hopeful space with little people running and smiling and jumping. It's my favorite place in the world, a school.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing.
Mine might be similar, Heather. When I started, my first thought was to say, well, I was kind of young and optimistic because being in my early-ish 20s, and I was teaching first grade. That's where I started. I had subbed for 2 years and I ended up in first grade. And yeah, there was just an energy about the kids and just about I'm doing something I went to college for to get this degree and being one of the first people in my family to finish my degree and then to go down that career path and to do that. And so I think that's what carried me to start was just that energy of the kids and like every day, like, hey, it's fun. And I worked at a fun school with a younger staff and had some great friends. And but definitely like you were saying, Michelle, you reflect on it and how much education has changed. I just think in the 7 years since I've left public education, right, and have been teaching at Fox, how much stuff has changed since 2019. Like it's hard for teachers now. It's much harder now. And this is a good question thinking about what gave you the hope when you started, but now what gives you the hope to continue. So
Yeah. Thank you. Definitely. Appreciate that. How about you, Kathy?
Oh, umpteen years ago, 30 plus years ago. My original background was special education,
Mm.
K-12, mostly upper elementary, middle school level. And yeah, I've known since I was 10 years old that, my lane was to be a special educator. And so I think as I was actively teaching students with special learning needs, it was like if I can help them to take some ownership of their own learning and their own journey and cultivate some agency in my students, that was very hopeful. But then about a dozen years into my career, when I pivoted into higher education, I had to really ask myself, well, hey, this middle school gig is pretty cool. Why would I want to do anything different? And the Lord just really impressed on my heart the whole discipleship model and the multiplication factor, and if I could speak into the preparation of, you know, 30 or 40 teacher candidates every year who in turn are going to impact, 20 or 30 or 60 or 90 students every year, even if I may not ever see direct fruit from that, would I be willing to invest in the future more indirectly? And I couldn't argue with that. I'm like, yes, Lord, I will do that. And so that's what brought me hope moving from K-12 into higher ed, was just knowing that even if I don't see the fruit, I'm planting seeds that will bear fruit. And so that was very hopeful for me.
Mm. That's great. That hope, I think, as you said, Randy, it's good for us to be reminded of that, of our why. Um, so we've got our nostalgic juices flowing, and I'll now provide some framework so we can consider the role of dispositions like hope in our work. During my 15 years as professor of education at Westmont, I had the privilege to research professional teaching dispositions like hope, courage, collaboration, inclusion, resilience, and more. And these dispositions are the postures, attitudes, and commitments of the heart. More formally defined, dispositions are the habits of professional action and moral commitments that underlie an educator's performance. And my research through the years revealed that when we take time to engage with dispositions through reflection, dialogue, and practice, just like we just did, we develop discipline, habits, and behaviors. We grow professionally. And just like if we were to take time to practice the violin or learn a new pickleball shot or a fresh mahjong move, when we dive into dispositional work, it creates an increased desire in us to engage with and infuse dispositions in our practice. Dispositions add meaning and value to our work, and they elevate our understanding of the heart part of our work that weaves through every facet of the job. We bring our whole selves to our classrooms with our hearts on full display. As professionals in our field, we have to intentionally engage in the quiet, engage in reflection, engage in listening, engage in dialogue, and engage in cultivating the postures, attitudes, and dispositions that demonstrate who we want to be and how we can become our best selves. So I invite you to do some inner work today, and we've already started. Let's exercise our dispositional muscles both individually and collectively. And I encourage you, if you are able, to remove any distractions around you. Take advantage of our time together. I'll ask you to reflect individually, just as we've done, and then to also have some sharing time as well. Let's dive into dispositional work as a means of self-care and soul care. And let's start with hope, which we've already had a really nice intro to. Hope indicates optimism, confidence, courage, promise, and potential. It's a desire accompanied by expectation or a belief in fulfillment. As a verb, hope expects, anticipates, wishes, yearns, or longs for something. And hope urges people like you and me to trust. In Latin, hope means to breathe, to share oxygen with others and ourselves. Put the oxygen mask on. Hope is also the posture of waiting to make a decision, to act on a decision. We are obligated to pause, to be patient, to anticipate and discover hope as we wait and sometimes yearn to move forward. Psalm 31:24 reminds us to be strong and let your heart take courage, all who hope in the Lord. And we know, you and I know, that our Christian faith recognizes hope in Jesus Christ, as seen most prominently on Easter weekend when we go from despair on Good Friday to waiting for Christ's return and triumphant rise from death on Sunday. Christianity uniquely points to hope in Christ, and this encourages us to take hope and apply it in our personal and professional relationships and communities. Of interest, hope can frequently appear as a positive outcome from adversity or challenging circumstances. And regardless of your reaction when I say COVID and living and working and teaching through COVID, COVID was challenging, but I know we all found a little bit of hope during that time. It takes courage and trust in the unseen to press on during challenging times. Hebrews 11:1 reminds us, faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. So I ask each of you, how can we cultivate and practice hope in our work? I'll share a few suggestions with you. The first is finding hope in our individual classrooms. Looking for hope can create an opportunity for us to learn and grow. And I ask you to think about, where do you see hope in your classroom, in your teaching, on your campuses, and in K through 12 schools as teacher educators? I've always found hope in student experiences, in the aha or the light bulb moment when the learning clicks and a student discovers something new. I feel hopeful. I'm excited. And the other great thing is I feel affirmed in my work. I find that when I'm able to guide a colleague through a professional decision, I feel hope-filled, and I see additional glimpses of hope when my colleagues and I have faced problems together and have sought and found solutions. I think hope truly shines in and through these distinct contexts and circumstances. In addition to identifying hope in our classrooms, we can choose to set our sights on hope collectively, together in community. And we, ICCTE, is an example of a community. Hope unites and bonds us, and a united community can highlight hope further. Throughout his career, children's television host Mr. Rogers urged his daily audience to look for the helpers, especially in challenging times. And Rogers' reminder to seek out the helpers touches our hearts and helps us recognize our human connection, not only in crisis, but also during what can often feel like the mundane daily grind. Together, whether we're in our departments or on committees, or when we're serving on a panel with colleagues, we can offer hope through our postures, our attitudes, and our hospitality. Collectively setting our sights on hope welcomes optimism into our classrooms and schools, and many times sets the example for our students. So in addition for looking for hope in our classrooms and collectively recognizing hope, we can cultivate hope More hope is fostered, which when we cultivate hope, more hope is fostered, which can bring about unexpected opportunities for self-care and soul care. Parker Palmer, again, I'm one of his biggest fans. Through his writings, he consistently encourages teachers to look within to know themselves. Why? Because teaching holds a mirror to the soul. You and I know that meaningful learning for students and for us as teachers requires vulnerability, mistake making, risk taking, and a growth mindset. It empowers and motivates us, as well as cultivates greater human connection. Throughout my many years in education, I've always loved the first day of school, and I'm guessing you do too. The energy, the nerves, the new clothes, the new backpacks, and the wide-eyed students. The first days of school for me were always exhausting, as I'm sure they are or have been for you. But those days consistently brought me energy and hope to keep coming back. I once read that hope isn't just a feeling, it's a framework for flourishing. And I love this reminder. Yet, it's important to recognize that seeking and finding hope in our classrooms and our communities isn't just about staying positive. Putting on an insincere, happy face devalues the important work that each of you does. And hope isn't enough unless a teacher's well-being and health are attended to. Cultivating hope in our communities that talk the talk and walk the walk values our roles as educators, as humans, and as God's children. And again, we're in one of those communities today. Educator Phyllis Fagel suggests we can't alter our current reality, but we can recognize that it's temporary and situational, and we can choose to preserve our optimism and relationships to emerge stronger. I just love that. We can choose to preserve our optimism, our hope, and relationships to emerge stronger. Steering our conversations and responses, as well as our tone, away from negativity and criticism, urges us to look toward hope. And we can hold space for hardship and hope at the same time. I recently read and wholeheartedly agree that being a teacher is an essential connection between what is and what can be. Practicing hope with intention can develop hope in us and fuel us and keep us going. And collectively, we can seek hope, identify hope, and recognize opportunities for hope with each other and our students. One of my favorite quotes by poet Amanda Gorman: "Hope isn't something you possess, it's something we practice. It has to be earned, it has to be fought for. And how can we as individuals and as a larger educational community hold space for hope, fight for hope, practice hope, and make sure hope fills and spills out of our cups?" So now I'm going to ask you to consider the following questions. I'll put them up on the screen, give you a few minutes to reflect. I'll ask you that you jot down a few notes if needed, and perhaps one or two of you might be willing to share out. So take a couple minutes, choose one or more of these questions, and we'll share collectively in a couple minutes. Anyone feeling courageous and willing to share about one of these questions?
I was just reflecting with question, conversation I had last week with a couple of colleagues. I know on sabbatical, but I went out to campus because I still meet with one friend for coffee on the regular. And but just thinking about not so much just encouraging these people, but looking at it from the perspective, Michelle, of where do you see hope in them that you can then, from that perspective of being hope filled, where can you kind of focus the encouragement on things you see in them around hope?
Thank you. And I'd encourage you to name it too, to tell them, because I think it takes it one step further. It demonstrates hope for and within them. And it may, again, hope can be, like all dispositions, can be contagious. I like that. Thank you. Anyone else? Any thoughts? I so appreciate that too, Randy, because I love the question about our colleagues. I think we spend so much time thinking about students that whenever we can use what we know and share it with our students, it's really lovely. All right, let's now consider the disposition of curiosity and how practicing curiosity can motivate and fuel us. Curiosity, defined as a desire to know or an interest that leads to inquiry. And take a moment and think about how you feel when you are curious. Wondering, questioning, and marveling are a professional art. Intentionally asking questions, seeking answers, trying to make sense of the world, people, or things is truly beautiful. And scripture reminds us in Matthew 7:7, ask and it will be given to you. Seek, love that word seek, seek and you will find. Knock and it will be open to you. We are all curious souls working in education, whether it's in K through 12 or faculty work in higher ed. And I wonder, to catch that, I wonder how our writing, our scholarship, and exchanges with colleagues and students can be an invitation to identify and ponder curiosity and how it makes us feel. Creating conditions to inspire student curiosity thoughtfully conveys to colleagues and students that curiosity is valued. Philosopher John Dewey repeatedly called on educators to capitalize on students' interests, to nurture curiosity to meet their needs and spark increased curiosity. Cultivating curiosity with an appetite for learning can be a valuable approach to grow our brains, our knowledge base, and our perspectives. And diving into deeper learning, or the variety of skills, competencies, and dispositions that prepare students to succeed academically, can fuel curiosity, creativity, and improved learning. And most importantly, like hope, curiosity can be contagious. From the simplest forms of asking a question, for example, what outcomes will we have if we change today's meeting? To a more complex question, how can we use AI in our disciplines with integrity? These are examples that can fuel curiosity. Posing questions to ourselves, our colleagues, and students demonstrates curiosity. I'll never forget my first year of teaching, just as I'm sure you won't forget yours. One of my junior high students named Willie wrote me an end of the year note that captured his genuine curiosity. And I have it right here, framed. Can't see it, but in my office. Thank you for making the effort to help others notice the wonders of the written word. I truly appreciate your dedicating your working career to revealing great authors to kids. If it wasn't for teachers such as yourself, the world would bear a very grim and foreboding future. I love the line. The foreboding future, grim and foreboding is amazing. But I really love the line about wonder, um, the wonder of the written word. And this conveys curiosity with a bit of humor in all the best ways. And his words continue to bring a smile to my face, and I see a smile or two as well. So now it's your turn. How might you nurture and tap into your spirit of curiosity? We talk about our students' curiosity all the time, but what about yours? How might you remain curious and cultivate curiosity? And just like hope, I'll give you a few minutes to reflect, jot down a few notes, and then I'll ask for a few of you to share out. So take a minute and pick one or more questions to ponder. Thoughts on one or more of these questions? You're all on the spot because we're a small group.
Okay, I can share. So thank you for these questions. And sometimes when I think about curiosity, I get overwhelmed because there's a lot of things I'd like to know about. There's a lot of things I'm curious about. There's a lot of research projects and teams I can join. And so I want to have a holy curiosity or a God-led curiosity to move into those things that are meant for me because I can't do everything. And so how can I ask God to help me direct my curiosity to the right avenues? And in terms of passing on a spirit of curiosity to my colleagues, I think about this because I often invite my colleagues into research projects, as mentioned, as part of number one. But I think I always frame it like, well, don't you want a CV line? Or yeah, that's how I frame it. Like, we need to be doing this research as part of our expectation. When you meet with the dean, what will you say? Like, not literally like that, but that's more how I invite people into research inquiries with me. So this question 3 helps me think about how could I invite differently based on sparking a spirit of curiosity, and that being the impetus for engaging in an inquiry together.
That's
Thank
beautiful. Beautiful. I love it. I love it. And I think it would be contagious and you would pass it on. I hope the prayer helps narrow your focus too. I love that.
I will admit that my view of curiosity growing up was kind of like the old adage, curiosity killed the cat. So curiosity is a bad thing, or it's a busybody kind of thing, or it's poking your nose where you don't belong. So for many, many years, that was really my only lens or my primary lens for thinking about curiosity. But then particularly being in teacher preparation, it lends itself to training our candidates to really engage in constructivism and setting up opportunities in the classroom, questions, exploration stations, field trips, things that would invite wonder. And you've rightly referenced John Dewey in that sense as well. And so I think that helping our teacher candidates to see how they can cultivate this in their K-12 students is a really valuable thing.
Definitely, definitely. And I think we lack sometimes, we just lack, again, it's the time, it's the energy, it's the space to just recognize some of the great things that we're doing. You're all probably cultivating curiosity in your conversations with colleagues and in your classrooms all the time. But it really does fill us up when we stop and ponder and think about it and identify the ways that we are curious. So thank you. Appreciate it. All right, let's scoot on, and together we can build and activate our own curiosity to create classrooms that possess and convey curiosity as the norm. And don't forget that curiosity, like hope, can be life-giving. So the last disposition that we'll look at is encouragement. Oh, getting a thumbs up. Thank you. Developing and modeling dispositions, as I just mentioned, necessitates time, care, vulnerability, and empathy. So let's consider encouragement, which is the action of giving someone support, confidence, or hope. And love that that's included. Instances where you and I have supported a student through the loss of a family member, or we've assisted a student that has been ill for a certain period of time. We've supported a colleague through a challenging tenure review. All of these examples demonstrate encouragement in distinct ways. I find it intriguing that the word encouragement contains the word courage. Courage is defined as mental or moral strength to venture, persevere, withstand danger, fear, or difficulty. And of interest, the root of the word courage is core, C-O-R or C-O-U-R, and that means heart. Like with hope and curiosity, I'll offer up a few suggestions for how we can recognize and cultivate encouragement in practice. And Scripture assures us, for everything that was written in the past was written to teach us, so that through the endurance taught in the Scriptures and the encouragement they provide, we might have hope. And I love that connection between encouragement and hope. Charlie Mackay's beautiful book, The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse. Have you read it? Do you have it? If not, order it today. It captures the essence of presence when one of the book's characters, the mole, recommends to his friend, the boy, that he find a quiet space to breathe and focus in order to be present. Committing to this type of presence, like the mole, to finding space to be in the moment, to embrace the moment, whether you're in a webinar or whether you are tackling big issues on campus about sustaining campus culture, these demonstrate encouragement to those around you. And don't discount the importance of your presence, of showing up for those in both your professional and personal lives. Recent research identifies a direct connection between the body, the brain, and well-being. And specific to faculty and higher education, the research acknowledges that teaching is a profession where teachers bring their whole selves. While this is affirming to us, it can also feel overwhelming. And as previously mentioned, we can recognize presence in the moment. We can be present. We can find and feel our own presence as well as God's presence when we pause to pray or to be with Him. Whether we pray or meditate or do deep breathing as individuals or collectively in our classrooms, mindfulness practices can help us generate contentment, maintain balance, and demonstrate sincere presence. Furthermore, we know that the brain works like a muscle and it can be molded and shaped. Mindfulness practices can increase brain function, lower stress, and enhance academic performance. And additionally, when we recognize how and when we practice presence, we are poised to encourage others. So much of what we do as educators every day is we choose presence with our students, with our colleagues. When we encourage others, we create space, a small window for authentic hope and motivation to exist. And this can feel energizing and encouraging. In an ideal world, all educators would feel optimal levels of encouragement from their districts, administrators, board of trustees, colleagues, and higher education communities. However, in reality, it becomes essential for teachers to seek out their own support from colleagues, mentors, and friends. The good news is we can take matters into our own hands when we need to. We can practice encouragement and make sure it fills and spills out of our cups. So, a few more questions to wet your whistle. Just as with hope and curiosity, let's take a few minutes to pause and reflect on encouragement, and then we'll come back together. Anyone interested in speaking to one or more of these questions?
Well, Michelle, I love that you broke down encouragement. That same thought had occurred to me, that just the root of it is from the French word for heart, and to take heart, to encourage. And I love what you've said about encouraging ourselves so that we can encourage others. I mean, just that, reciprocal process is really very beautiful. I like your third question about choosing presence as a form of encouragement, and I've just really been taken in recent years about just the whole ministry of presence, which involves and we can be virtually present to each other. It's preferable when we can be present in person. That's one thing I love about ICCTE and gathering at conferences is being able to encourage each other in person, but then in virtual means at other times. But being present also involves a lot of listening, which is a discipline I have to be intentional about listening and being present to others. But had another thought there, but it has escaped me. But I'm just resonating with what you're saying, and very, very much taken by the ministry of presence as a form of encouragement.
Mhm. Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that.
Kathy, you took a bunch of my thoughts there at the end, but it's fine. But
Mine's
but
alike.
I'll start with the first one, the first question though, because I hadn't thought about that, about encouraging yourself so you can then go and encourage others. Because I feel like I'm a positive person. I naturally just run around encouraging people, being a cheerleader all the time, right? But as you shared, Michelle, like, how do we keep our cup filled? Because if we keep pouring it out for others, that's what I'll continue to ponder about. How do I encourage myself? But the second part that you touched on too, Kathy, that I connected with it's just that form of presence to encourage others in writing and scholarship. And I think about whether it's colleagues I have direct connection with in my own department, or just the research group that I'm part of with Dean and Carly, right? That we can show up every time we meet on Zoom and continue to encourage each other, because as we say all the time, I don't know how there are people that can do scholarship and can write and do it independently, but it's much better when you have a group, a team, right, that can encourage each other. And then, as you were saying too, with ICCTE, that we can then connect in person at conferences and do more of that connecting in community. So, which you opened with too, Michelle, we're talking about what we do in the community. It's special. So,
Yeah. I mean, Michelle, I was recalling the time that we gathered at Calvin to just
Yeah.
really support each other in our writing around care. And that was just an incredible experience. And then, Randy, as you were pointing out the first question about encouraging ourselves in order to encourage others, I've really been drawn to Colossians 3. And when I share that with others, it's like, okay, we have a responsibility to be our own truth speakers and to rehearse God's truth over ourselves, but then also in community to rehearse God's truth over others. And so when the Apostle Paul says in Colossians 3, put on, kindness and patience, and put on all of these virtues, we have to remind ourselves to do that, but we have to remind each other in kind and gentle ways to do that as well.
I appreciate that so much. Yeah, and again, all of these questions are to challenge you and help you think about, how can you fill your cup? How can you fuel yourself? Because you're doing so many of these things all the time just anyway, but have you stopped to identify and think about how and when? And not only are you filling others' cups, but your own. So thank you for that. Good, rich conversation. So, hope, curiosity, and encouragement. 3 dispositions that can energize us professionally and personally. We share hope on the daily with steady optimism. We demonstrate curiosity when we invite inquiry into our classrooms and conversations. And we regularly deliver encouragement to students and colleagues with our presence. A broad smile, a sincere look, or a word of care are all encouraging. Dispositional work takes time, and finding the time and space to dive into reflection, to take action, becomes our challenge. My encouragement to each of you today is that we challenge each other in conversation. We challenge each other in person, in prayer, via text, via note, email. Might you be intentional as you look for hope, curiosity, and encouragement? Maybe more importantly, how might you infuse these dispositions, language that supports these dispositions, and questions that cultivate these dispositions in professional practice? The heart and soul of every educator needs to be attended to. When educators like you and me activate dispositions like hope, curiosity, and encouragement, we feel grounded. We are able to reset. And professional teacher dispositions give teachers, teacher educators, administrators, and educational researchers a language that can be used to talk about and describe what teachers do and what makes them do what they do. Dispositions are the heart part of our work. So, returning to the coffee cup. The coffee cup. I know you have one near you. What is spilling from your cup? What is filling your cup? What is sustaining you? Might you add a few dispositions to your cup? Might you prioritize, as Palmer says, some inner work for flourishing, for self-care, and for soul care? So as a final activity, we are going to just take a look at one more set of questions. Pick one or several. And just consider how hope, curiosity, and encouragement can take you forward after we meet today. So take a minute or two and then we'll reconvene. Final thoughts connected to these questions or otherwise on hope, curiosity, and encouragement. I especially love the last question that asks you to consider a goal, just a small or something big that you can do to focus on one or more of these moving forward. Anyone want to share?
Michelle, it was helpful to hear how you expressed extending encouragement to ourselves, because I tend to always look at that as an outward facing disposition and hadn't really given a whole lot of thought to the fact that that could be, an inward facing disposition to nourish self and soul care. So I think, in some way, shape, or form, I might, turn that into a little bit of a personal goal for myself to see how I can be my own agent of encouragement in addition to extending encouragement to others.
Beautiful. Thank you. Reminds me of what I said in the start about hope means to breathe, that you give yourself oxygen as well as give it to others. Heather or Randy, any final thoughts or challenges moving forward?
You said it was about setting a goal. I think just when you were talking earlier with encouragement, just practicing presence with others, thinking around that. So
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. I found this really helpful, and I'm a bit overwhelmed with just the luxury of the sabbatical time. And so I have a thankfulness statement that I make each day when I begin my day. And I feel that after this webinar, I'm going to incorporate hope into that statement, because I want to be thankful throughout the sabbatical, but I don't want it just to be that. I want there to be the hope that all the time that I spend is worth it. When I say worth it, I mean like I feel it's very luxurious right now. It's like only me is benefiting from this time, but I hope that when I return, then I will be able to encourage others and inspire curiosity and hope in others. And so I want to integrate at least that one disposition for sure into my daily statement. Thank you.
I appreciate that. And my encouragement to you is keep it simple, because it sounds like it is easy to get overwhelmed with all the things, and keep it simple. And hopefully there'll be some fruit from that. Just some final words. We have a lot of unique challenges before us, and we can choose to clench our fists and stomp our feet, or we can open our hearts to recognize, learn about, develop, practice, and share dispositions generously. Practice means coming back to something over and over again, learning as we go. And I'm so grateful that you accepted the invitation to practice with me today. One final thought: teaching is ultimately an act of hope. Every time I teach a lesson, I hope it will inspire learning. Every time I intervene with a struggling student, I hope it will change the trajectory of their path. The temptation to fall into cynicism is alive and well in education. However, hope is a choice I make every day. So thank you. What a pleasure to spend time with you. Thanks again to ICCTE. And if you have any questions or if I can be of any help in the future, please don't hesitate to reach out.